Everybody, it's Lisa, one of the admins from the Silhouette Cameo Beginners Newbie Hangout. I had some questions I had done a video on layering HTV, and I had several people ask me how you break apart a design to be able to cut it individually. So I'm going to show you what I kind of did with the duck one that I had. I did use a coloring page. I did make those for some of my friends, so it's not like, I'm selling them, but I did make them for a friend of mine. So I will show you kind of the steps that I did. It's a little more detailed, but once you start doing it, it's pretty simple. If you have Design Edition on your software, typically you can go out to the Internet Explorer, or whatever you use, Google Chrome or whatever, and you can type in, like I'm going to type in duck coloring pages, because you want to look for something that's black and white, that's easy to trace, basically is what you're looking for. That way you don't have to cuss so much. So here's my duck. Now if you have Design Edition, you can simply left click. Whoops, I lied to you. See, we all make mistakes. Don't do that. So what you're going to do is right click. You're going to copy. You're going to come down to your Silhouette program into one of your screens or your design pages, and you're going to click paste. Now you can only do this if you have Design Edition. Oh, excuse me. I've been up too long today. Design Edition or Business or something like that. The basic version will not do this, okay? So let me show you what I did. The first thing I did was I'm going to trace this duck, because I can't do anything right now, because in the software it looks like it's just a blank piece of paper. It will not cut, it will not do anything. It's just kind of laying there flat with nothing on it. Okay, so think of this as a blank sheet of paper. We're going to basically be drawing this duck, and you do that by tracing. Okay, first thing we're going to do is I go up. To me, like I said, it always looks like a piece of toast with peanut butter and jelly on it, jelly toast, or you could call it a butterfly. You need to think of some things, and I'll start. Usually when I do my videos, I say some tips that are easy to remember what things are. So first you're going to click on your butterfly. You're going to select the trace area. All that means is, what area on this flat piece of paper do I want to trace it? I'm going to try and make it three-dimensional. I want to trace the whole duck. Okay. Now some of you have issues with, see how we have this double line here? You always need to turn off your high pass filter if you want things to fill in. Otherwise it's going to cut a double line. Okay. Now what I'm going to do to get this duck, I don't want all these components right now. Okay, I just need something that I can fill in. So I'm going to trace the outer edge. That means it's just going to trace the outside line of the duck. Okay, when I pull this away, how I know that I've done this right, if I click on my duck, I'm going to make my duck yellow. See how that fills in? So there's the base layer to my duck. That's the first starting point. Okay, I'll push this off to the side, and typically what I do is, if it's a real detailed design, I'll go in and trace individual pieces. So I'm going to trace the eye. I go back to the butterfly, we select our trace area window, and we come over here and we trace the eye. Let me zoom in so you guys can see a little better. Okay, now when we're talking about this high pass filter, if I were to trace this right now, I would have any area that is black is actually going to be an empty open space. Watch when I uncheck the high pass filter, it fills it in. Okay, so then we're going to hit trace, and when I move my duck out of the way, my flat piece of paper, here's my eye. Now I do have pieces of the eyebrow in there and pieces of the other part of the design. The easy way to fix that is to left click, right click, release your compound path. See how what it does is it breaks it apart, and now it becomes like puzzle pieces. So I'm going to click right here, click on the pieces I do not want, click and hit the delete button. Okay, now what I will do is I'm not going to make this a compound path again, because what I want to do is I want to make it a pretty design. So I'm going to have blue. Now you notice how everything turned blue. I'm going to select the inside of the eye, make it white, and then I'm going to select the pupil here. It's hard to select it when there's no color in it, and make that white. So now if I go to cut this, I will cut a white piece, this white piece, and I'll cut a blue piece. Okay, so already it's starting to separate. Okay, typically what I'll do is I'll put it back together until I'm going to cut. Now I will tell you that before you cut a design like this, always make a copy of it. So like I was going to cut this, what I'm going to do is deconstruct it. So when I go to cut it, I'll be cutting on my white piece, I'll be cutting my blue piece of vinyl or HTV or whatever it is. I don't remember how it goes back together. So that's why I always make a copy of it so I can reference that at a later point. Okay. I'll actually group it and put it over here. So right now we have the eye, we have the body, and now we need to do a mouth. Okay. So I'm going to do it again. I'm going to go to my butterfly, select your trace area, and I'm going to select the beak. Okay. Turn off your high pass filter. Okay. This one gets a little more complicated, so you have to pay a little bit closer attention. I'm going to hit trace, move my duck out of the way. Now, this does not look like my duck mouth. See how my duck mouth is on this one? Okay, let me show you how I got that to happen. So here's the one that I traced from this mouth here. Okay, I'm going to left click to select my design, right click, release my compound path. When I release my compound path, I'm going to pull this mouth out. Now, the best thing for you to do, I'm very visual, is I fill it in with color and then it gives me an idea of exactly what I'm looking at. This is my duck's mouth. Okay, I'm going to zoom back out. So all this other stuff here I don't need. I can just delete it. So now watch, when I put this together, see my duck mouth? There's my eye. See how that works? Now sometimes what I'll do is if I have designs that I can use commercially, things like that, I do buy designs. I also subscribe to graphic sites so that I can use a lot of things in my work, because I do sell a lot of things. I will use components or pieces and parts of other things. So I really can't trace this wing very well. The main reason is this is not connected. Now I could go in and trace it, make it real complicated and take a while, but I don't want to do that. Excuse me, staying up too late again. I'm just going to use a component of a wing from another design that I have, which I have it saved down here. Okay, I'll just make it a size that I need it to be. You know, you can adjust the way that it looks. Now when it goes behind it, simply just left click to select, right click, bring it to the front. And now it'll be in the front. I do want to give this a color though. So I'm going to make it orange. Okay, just that simple. So when you go to cut this design, I also have components of a bow from another design that I have, which is the little bow that I put on this one here. So just like that. And what I would do is I would just take my design, size it out, put my bow, see how it's behind it again? So select it, right click, and bring it to the front because it puts it in front of the design. And then you'll just tweak it a little bit to make sure it looks even. And don't do things like that. Love the undo button, right? Okay. And then stick my bow. So what do we do here? Left click to select it, right click, and bring to the front. Okay. Ultimately, what I would do with this bow is I would weld it together, depending on what time of day it is. So now it becomes one piece. So when it cuts, it won't cut the little separate line. It's going to cut this as one individual piece. So when I go to cut this design, say if I had 3 or 4, or if I'm just doing 1, I will cut my yellow ducks out on my yellow HTV, and then I would take apart my eye. So I'm going to ungroup this, but remember, make a copy of it so you know your positioning of it. Okay, so now when I go to cut white, here's a white piece I can cut. I'm going to take this little white piece and bring it over here. I'm going to cut my blue piece. If I put the orange in there, I can cut my wing and my mouth. I have a pink bow. Now, Let me show you what you can do. If you are really good, you can put all those components or all those different colors on one mat. I am not that smart. I can't do that, but a lot of people are. So what you're going to do at this point to cut these pieces out is you're going to come over to, it always looks like a marker to me. It's supposed to be the cut setting window. So you click on the cut setting window. Now, when you come into yours, you're going to come into standard. I never live in the standard window. I always go to the advanced window. That's just where I live. I'm very visual. And I want to do cut conditions, so I'm going to cut by fill color. So see everything that's lit up in these colors? This is every color that I have on my screen. Whatever I don't want to cut, I'm just going to uncheck. This means something that has no pattern in it at all. Say, for instance, I'm only going to cut the blue. So if I have blue vinyl in there, I will take everything off. Oops. See, we all make mistakes. Take everything off. And then I will cut. Usually I have a lot of scraps laying around, so I would cut this piece in blue. Once I cut the blue piece, I'll come back and grab my white, put that on there. I'm going to uncheck my colors, and I'm going to go down and check my white. And how you know you have it correctly is because it lights up. It's hard to see with this being white, but it actually lights up a different color. So if I wanted to put the yellow piece over here and cut it, then I need to turn the yellow on. So you see how that changed the outline of that, made it a little darker? Those are your cut lines. If you go in to cut something and it doesn't have cut lines, then you haven't done it correctly. Okay, now with this little duck here, what's easy about him is I can simply just layer it back together. I don't have to use registration marks or guides to try and help me figure it out. Okay, now the other thing you guys hear me talk about all the time is always doing your test cuts. Okay, there are lots of people wasting lots of vinyl, lots of HTV. In the cut settings window under advanced, this is where you do your test cut. So like if I have the white HTV in, I'm going to move this over to the side a little bit. And I'm going to come down here and click on my white. My white is not my blue stencil vinyl, okay? My white is going to be my HTV, correct? Let me go down here and get it. Mine keeps moving around. So it's going to be smooth HTV. And your settings right now, if you look at them, are not the same as mine because I have went in and changed them. Because one, I don't like the auto blade, so I always turn it off and make it a ratchet blade. I never use my auto blade because it made me use a lot of cuss words. Okay, and I have went in and I've taken my HTV and I have tested my cuts. So I know for me, but you guys are not going to believe me, but I set my blade at a number 2 and I never, ever, ever change my blade. Never. I leave it exactly where it is. The only thing I change is my speed, my thickness, okay? How you do a test cut is you go in and say whatever the default settings are, okay? You put your HTV in and you're going to do a test cut. Now, if you're using tool 1, you need to make sure that your red is lit up. This is the tool 1 or the first blade that is in your holder in the Cameo 3. If you don't have a Cameo 3, you just simply go and hit test cut. When you do your test cut, the machine will go in and do a quick cut, and it's going to be a box with a triangle. If when you go to weed that and it comes off like butter, then you have the correct settings. If it is jagged, if it doesn't pull off very easily or you're struggling, go in here and adjust your thickness. The speed only means how fast the machine is cutting that project for you, okay? The thickness means how thick the material is that you have inside the machine that you're cutting. So think about it like this. A piece of copy paper is very thin. A piece of glitter HTV is very thick, so therefore your thickness will be higher. The higher the number, the thicker the material, okay? Sometimes you'll notice a change in this, like if your blade is getting dull, you may have to make some adjustments to this, okay? That could take a long time. I rarely have to change mine. This is what I have it set at, and this is what I leave it. If my machine is acting up, say I've had these settings for a while and it acts up and I stick it in there and it cuts all the way through. Maybe I put a new blade in. Maybe it doesn't cut at all. I'm going to go in and adjust my thickness. I don't typically ever use double cut. The only time I use double cut if I'm doing really thick magnets. Okay? So once you do your test cuts, everything's copacetic, good to go, then you're going to make sure you hit send to silhouette. And that should run it through and cut out your design for you. Okay? Then when you go to layer your design, when you're making, say, a shirt or whatever, you can watch the video of the one of the duck I did. So I had the duck, and you just layer the components. That's all you do. Simply layer your components back. So what I did a bad thing. I resized mine, but that's okay. So you're just going to put all the bits and pieces back in to make it. And you're going to do this right there on your machine, right there on your heat press. So for me, I would do probably the yellow first, do either my eye or my mouth. My final piece is probably going to be my bow, put my wing in there, and you should be good to go. You should be done. Okay. You can practice taking more complicated designs. So like if I want to just trace this eye, okay, it's a very complex little eye, but it's really not. So to trace, we go to butterfly, click on the trace area. What do I want to trace? Remember, this is a flat piece of paper. It'll do nothing. So I'm going to trace this eye. Okay, maybe I want to get a little of the eyebrow this time. So when you look at this, we have a lot of space here. This means, see where this yellow is? This will cut on this side and this side. That's the double line. Uncheck your high pass filter. So you can see we have a little bit of area here that needs to be filled in. I use the threshold for that. See how it starts to fill it in? Now it's a little much, so I'm going to back down just a little bit. And then I'm going to hit trace. Okay, I'm going to show you a trick here. So this eye did not come out exactly how I wanted. See all this right here? Your best friend is going to be, like I said, I'm visual. So you click on whatever it is you've traced, and you always go to your paint bucket, fill it in with color. Now you can see exactly what it's going to look like when it cuts. I want to take this goopy stuff out that doesn't need to be there. That is just simply from where my trace wasn't very good. So my design is selected. I'm going to right click, release the compound path. You see how everything turns into the same color? This is why I tell you, if your design goes black, so let's do this. If I turn this whole thing black, I cannot see what's going on. Go up to your line window, change your lines to white or a lighter color, because now you can see what you need to remove. So I need to take this thing out, this piece out, these little tiny pieces out, right? This one and this one. Now I'm going to go back up here, select my whole design, right click and make a compound path. If I click better, it'd be all right, right? So there's my eye. Now, if I look back over here at this eye, I'm missing one piece of the eyeball, right? So I'm going to go over here to my little drawn ellipse. Get this duck out of the way here. Okay, come over here, draw my ellipse. I'm going to curve it a little bit because that eye is not quite perfect. Bring it over here and figure out where I want it. But see, I can't move any of this now. Do you know why? Because we made it a compound path. So right click it, release your path. It's not a big deal. And now what I can do is I can basically deconstruct this eye to be able to make cutting pieces now. So let's say I want my lashes to be a light charcoal gray. Go to your paint bucket, change the gray. This is part of the eye. This is the whites of the eye. So if you look over here at our picture, see how that should be? So now I'm going to click on this and I'm going to change that to white. This part, okay, actually should be blue, right? But what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this component over here and I'm going to make this a pretty blue. And then I've got to go find my little dot here. That's my little pupil. I'm going to make that white as well. See how it disappeared? So I need to go back and find it and bring it to the front. Let's actually make her lashes black. So there's my little eye for her. Now you could go in and do more detail if you wanted to, or I could actually click on her eyelashes. I can make all that blue, and I can change this pupil to black. See how much better that looks just by changing the colors of it? So you can practice doing little things like that. So now when you go to cut it, you've got components broke down. If I remember what I said, always make a copy of it because you'll never know what that looks like. Okay? So that's basically the gist of how I did my duck, and a couple more details on how to maybe trace some little more detailed areas and how to go into your cut settings and do your test cuts and send things to the silhouette and cut them and adjust those cut settings. If you guys have any questions, you can get a hold of me on Facebook through our Cameo page. Todd and I are always willing to help you guys. I hope this helps you out. You guys have a good night. I will talk to you later. Bye-bye.